Hello, everybody, and good evening. Thank you very much for being with us here today. Our webinar today is with Matthew Peterson from Washington University in St. Louis. Thank you very much, Matthew, for taking out time for us today. He'll be talking about how to apply to highly selective universities in the US. I will just go ahead and share my screen and tell everybody a little bit about Education USA. Um, so I'll introduce myself before that. So I'm an Education USA advisor here at the Lahore office. I did my Fulbright master's program from the George Washington University. My program was in international development studies, and I specialized in climate resilience and impact evaluation. And now I'm working at Education USA Pakistan as an Education USA advisor. So what is Education USA? So Education USA is known as USEFP, which is short for the US Educational Foundation in Pakistan, and we provide advising in basically all across Pakistan, but we do have physical offices in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. The Fulbright program is our flagship program, and the scholarship basically supports aspiring graduate students in Pakistan who wish to pursue either a master's or a PhD in the United States. The Fulbright Scholarship is a fully funded program that offers support not just for the tuition fee, but it also lends students support for housing, transportation, food, and also a return air ticket to the US and back to Pakistan. Okay, so what is Education USA? So Education USA is present pretty much wherever there's a US embassy. We are part of the US Department of State, and we provide you with accurate, current, and comprehensive information. We also offer resources, guidance, and advice on how to find the best fit university that caters to your needs. So what all services do we provide? We provide one-on-one advising. You can either book a call with us virtually or visit our offices in Karachi or in Islamabad. We also offer free in-house or virtual sessions like the webinar that we're having right now. We also have free workshops on standardized tests such as the GRE, GMAT, SAT, and TOEFL. And if you visit one of our offices, you can also access our resource library. We have preparatory material on standardized tests and also books about US culture, campus life, and what it means to be an international student in the US. So, in addition to our three offices, we have Lincoln Corners all across Pakistan. We have five Lincoln Corners in Punjab. So, the Lincoln Corners basically serve as American spaces where you can access desktop. If you want to take a virtual tour of a university that you're interested in, we have 3D printers there for you to print something cool for yourself. The Lincoln Corner in Lahore is located inside the Quaid-e-Azam Library. We have one in Sargola, Faisalabad, Multan, and Bihari in Punjab. So, if you haven't already, I would suggest that you register for our free advising services by going to this link at educationusa.pk/register. If you have a question, drop us an email at lahore@educationusa.org. I'll be also dropping down this email in the chat for everybody to note down in case anybody has any questions. The webinar recording will be posted on YouTube and you'll be able to access it in a few days. You can follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram for any updates on events and webinars that we might have scheduled. And you can also follow the US Consulate General in Lahore on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We do sometimes have collaborations with them. If you have any queries related to the visa or the visa application process, you can go to the usembassy.gov website. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen now and I will hand it over to you, Matthew.
Great, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning or perhaps good evening, where you are viewing this webinar from. My name is Matthew Peterson. I'm the Associate Director of International Missions at Washington University in St. Louis. If you'll just give me a moment, I'll go ahead and just share my screen with you all. All right, fantastic. Okay, so thank you all again for joining us today. So what I'll do for the next few minutes is I'll start with an introduction about Washington University in St. Louis, the institution that I represent, and then we'll spend a bulk of this program talk about what it means to apply to a highly selective institution, university, or college within the United States at the undergraduate level. So without further ado, let me introduce you all to Washington University in St. Louis, or WashU as we're commonly called. Now, WashU was founded in 1853, just over 170 years ago, at a time when our founders felt that there was a void in higher education, particularly here in the Midwestern United States where we are located. So they wanted to establish a place of learning where individuals could take practical, technical, and general education courses outside of the working hours. And thus, WashU was established at that time. And today we've grown to be a prominent research institution in the United States and around the world. Part of our mission is acting in the service of truth through the formation of leaders. So fostering and developing leadership for all of our students is very much a part of our mission. Another part of our mission is creating and discovering new knowledge via research and innovation. One of my favorite fun facts about WashU is that our scientists at the medical campus developed the first nasal vaccine for COVID-19 in the world, and India was the first country to adopt it for its widespread use. So our reach is truly global and worldwide. And last but not least, our mission also entails providing excellent patient care. So the way that our doctors, our healthcare providers, our nurses work with patients, especially those who are underinsured, uninsured, in the St. Louis community is a really important facet of what we do, and making a positive impact in St. Louis, the United States, and truly throughout the entire world. We are a medium-sized research university. We have about 7,500 to about 8,000 students at the undergraduate level, but another 8,000 students or so at the graduate level, sitting across 5 academic divisions: arts and sciences, engineering, business, art, and architecture. As you'll see from this map, we have students coming from all 50 states in the US. We also have over 50 countries represented on our campus alone at the undergraduate level, including from Pakistan and other parts of Central Asia and South Asia as well. So you'll see that there's no one racial or ethnic group that makes a majority on our campus. So our campus community is really made up of students from all walks of life where they can really learn and grow from one another. So really enriching experience for our students. I'll briefly talk about the academic experience. What's really important to note about WashU's academic experience is that everything is really rooted in this idea of interdisciplinary learning and a liberal arts foundation. So no matter what your main focus of study might be, whether that's in computer science, architecture, in finance, every student is going to receive not only a well-rounded academic experience, but they're going to receive the skills and tools necessary to be the most effective change makers, leaders, and problem solvers of tomorrow. Our Center for Career Engagement likes to say that your major or your degree does not dictate your future career, but rather what are the competencies and the skills that you would develop from this experience that's going to make you not only a more compelling applicant for a future career, but also just a better human being. So effective communication, problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, those are the skills that employers are looking very favorably upon, and they are looking very highly at WashU graduates. Now, we do have 5 academic divisions: arts and sciences, which is like the home for the liberal arts at WashU, the Olin Business School, where you will find things like finance, healthcare management, entrepreneurship, our McKelvey School of Engineering, computer science, biomedical engineering. Those are very popular with our students. And then last but not least, we're also known for our excellence in the arts and culture, and that's where the Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts comes into play, where you will find students studying across communication design, fashion design, studio art, where you can specialize in things like photography, ceramics, drawing, and then we also have the College of Architecture, where students can pursue a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in architecture. So beyond this, you can have a major in one division, one college, but also have another major or maybe a minor in a different school. So if you're interested in solving climate change, you might be interested in pursuing a major in environmental analysis within the College of Arts and Sciences, but you also might be artistic. Maybe you've taken some art classes in high school. You might take some classes in the Sam Fox School of Design that might lead to a minor in design or drawing because you might be interested in creating sustainable spaces for the betterment of our society. So that's really the bulk of the academic experience at WashU. Of course, being a student is really important, but we're also very much engaging you inside and outside the classroom, whether that's studying abroad with over 100 countries around the world. Entrepreneurial mindset is really important at WashU. We will help you develop that skill set. We'll give you seed money if that is something you're interested in to start your own business on campus, or partner with a venture within the St. Louis area. The Cortex Innovation Center is kind of like this techy entrepreneurial hub in the city of St. Louis that's not too far from our campus where a lot of students will engage with one another. And then we're also very much known for community engagement. Our chancellor likes to say that we're in St. Louis and for St. Louis as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to kind of engage and put your service forward in the St. Louis area. And then the Office of Undergraduate Research, we are top tier R1 research institution. So we're always finding ways to really engage with our students and our faculty in creating information or discovering knowledge that's really for the betterment of society. We provide money for our undergraduates to pursue research, do hands-on learning. So whether you're interested in how heat waves impact certain insects or looking at the relationship between age, death, and dying in Japanese culture, there really is something for all types of students at WashU. And nonetheless, we also have 400 plus different student organizations that are entirely led by our students and fully supported by the university. So no matter what you are interested in pursuing, whether that relates to athletics, community service, Greek life, being part of a cultural organization, you can certainly do that at WashU. And one of the last points I'll talk about before I move into the highly selective piece is that if you haven't guessed by our name, we are located in the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is in the middle of the United States, in the Midwestern United States. We're about a 2 hour flight from New York City, about a 45-minute flight from Chicago, and about a 2 hour flight from Dallas or Houston, Texas. It's very conveniently located from a number of major international airport hubs in the United States. From South Asia for me, it only takes about 24 hours, but that's only two flights, so not terrible. But the great thing about our city is that our students have great access to it. We believe our students have the best of both worlds. They have great access to a traditional yet very unique American college campus experience with lush greenery, beautiful stone architecture, a vibrant student life. Against the backdrop of a major city like St. Louis. We're nestled in between Forest Park on the east end, which is like our version of Central Park in New York City, except ours is more beautiful. But from there, you have quick access to the St. Louis Art Museum, which you'll find on the upper center image, the St. Louis Zoo, the Missouri History Museum, the Muni for Broadway caliber musicals during the summer, and they're all free to the public, including our students. And then to the north, you have the Del Mar Loop right in the center image that has a lot of great restaurants like Corner 17, vintage shops, record stores, arcade, bowling alley, live music venues. And then we're also very close to downtown, about 14 kilometers or so. But there is a metro that will take you there directly from our campus. So if you're going to the St. Louis Cardinals game for baseball or football match, it's very easy to do from our campus alone. So St. Louis is a very accessible city. It's very easy to get around. There's a lot of culture and a lot of great food that's happening in our city. So you won't be bored or run out of options to do. And many affordable options as well, I should point out about St. Louis. With that said, that's a bit about WashU, just kind of the nuts and bolts. There's a lot more to it, and I'm happy to engage with you more about what makes WashU WashU. But you're always welcome to reach out to our office with any more questions that you might have as it relates to our university, academics, and student life. But I think for the bulk of this program today, we do want to focus on highly selective admissions, what that really means for students applying from outside the US as well as within the US, how it relates to your college search, and things of that nature. So the first thing we want to do is we want to understand highly selective admissions. There are about 4,000 plus colleges and universities across the United States alone. You have a lot of options before you. It's really important to think about your fit. It's important to think about what matters most to you in your college education, the type of experience that you want out of your 4 years, because it is a big investment, especially for you and your family if you are coming from outside of the United States. Think about what is most important to you. Is it a specific academic program? Is it a specific social experience? Do you want to be at a big school, a smaller school? Do you want less students in the classroom, more individualized attention from your teachers? What type of environment do you want to be in, whether that's in a big city like New York or Chicago, or do you want to be in a more rural area like a small college town in the US? So think about things that matter most to you and kind of go from there because I think you'll be able to find some tools and resources like Education USA that are going to be really valuable to you in your search process moving forward. So today we're going to talk about what it means to be highly selective. WashU is one of the fortunate schools that gets to be highly selective in the United States. It's not something that we necessarily want to brag about, but it is something that is really important to understand. We have a lot of interest in WashU and we're very grateful for that, but it comes down to supply and demand. We have high demand but low supply. We have so many highly qualified applicants that we receive every single year, but unfortunately, we have to turn them away because we don't have the space or the capacity for them. It doesn't mean that they can't be a great fit at WashU. We certainly see value in their application, but at the end of the day, we have to find the best applicants or the students that are going to thrive best at WashU. We're also going to dive into the application review process. What we typically look for in our review process here at WashU, that may look similarly at another highly selective university. So we'll talk about holistic review, how we take apart every component of the application, in really deciphering whether or not a student is the right fit for our institution. And then last but not least, we'll kind of talk about starting your search. I kind of mentioned some key points about finding your fit and what matters most to you, but we'll dive into a little bit more about that later on. So let's talk a bit about selectivity. So the very top line kind of explains it best for you. So selectivity is just a measure of how difficult it is to be admitted. There are about 100 highly selective universities in the United States across our country. WashU is just one of them, and many of our peer institutions also hold that sort of title. Most colleges in the US do happen to admit most of their applicants. Really, any college can be selective as long as they are not admitting 100% of their students. That could mean 60% are admitted. That could mean 70%, 80%, it could mean 50%, or just 4%. We're all typically selective, but there are going to be a lot of universities that are going to admit most of them above that 50% threshold. But again, highly selective is really meaning about 30% or 25% of of students are being admitted into their university. Again, that really comes down to that idea of supply and demand. There's very high demand for a place like at WashU. We're very grateful and lucky and privileged to be having that sustained interest, but we don't have enough capacity on our campus to accommodate all these very highly qualified students. So that's where our review process comes into focus, where we actually get to know the students very well and their applications and have to understand what space is available while also understanding what value that student can bring into our campus community. So now we'll dive into the application itself. It's really important to know different types of applications that colleges and universities across the United States do accept. The most common one that you're probably more familiar with is going to be the common application on the far left side of your screen. Now, the common application, over 1,000 colleges and universities use it across the United States, and some actually outside the US do use it. Now, the common application really streamlines applying to college, makes applying to college just a tiny bit easier. You can fill out the same biographical, contact information, same personal statement, activity summary, and send that off to 20 different colleges at one time. Now, it's really important to note that some colleges and universities will have an additional supplement that's found in the common application. So you have to make sure that when you are going through this process, that you are having both the common application portion and the college specific supplement completed in time to have it fully submitted and fully considered for admission. Coalition application won't be so applicable to you all, but this is a free application that is used by WashU and about 149 other schools across the United States. It's really meant to support students who are limited income, under-resourced, as well as first-generation students. We still do highly recommend that if you are an international student, you use the common application because that is what we are most looking for in our process. QuestBridge won't be as applicable to you all, but this is used in the United States, also for students who identify as limited income and sometimes first generation. But this is a great program that we have at WashU for students within the United States. And then some universities and colleges on the far right side will have their own specific application outside of any one of these traditional platforms that we tend to see. So just be mindful about that. I would recommend making kind of a spreadsheet of all the colleges that you're interested in and create a tab for the application. Are they using the common application or do they have their own application just to help you with your planning and understand that you're not missing out on anything that might be important as you go through this process. You also want to understand the different application rounds. This is really important because every college and university will have something different. It's really important to understand the difference between early decision, early action, and regular decision, especially within the context of a highly selective university like at WashU. So let's dig into each one of these. So early decision, this is going to be a binding commitment decision plan. If you apply early decision to one school like WashU, let's say you apply early decision one, you apply in early November, you hear back from us in December that you've been admitted. if you've been admitted, you have to withdraw all your applications from all other universities, whether they were early action or regular decision, because you have committed to attending WashU when you applied to WashU. You will fill out a commitment a document saying that's signed by you, your counselor, and your one of your parents or family members. This essentially signifies that if I am admitted to this school, I am attending this school, unless there are extenuating circumstances that do not allow me to attend. But generally, you will have to know that this is your top or your first choice if you intend to apply to a school early decision. Many schools will have two different rounds. They'll have early decision one, which typically takes place in early November, and they may also have early decision two, which may take place in early decision, or sorry, early January. For some students, let's say you applied to your ED1 school and did not get in, you may have a second choice or another top choice option that you still have another opportunity to apply to in early decision two in January. Now, the difference between early decision and early action is that yes, they're both early application rounds, but early action gives you that flexibility and it's non-binding. So you can apply EA to as many schools as you want unless they're early or unless they're restrictive early action. But with EA, you may hear back about a decision earlier, but you still have until May 1 to decide whether or not this school is the right fit for you. So WashU has both early decision one and two as well as early action. And then the next one is going to be regular decision. Now, regular decision typically takes place in January. That's typically when the applications due, early January. This also gives you some flexibility. It's a great opportunity for students who may want some more flexibility, may want some more time in completing their applications for a particular school, or maybe they're considering different options, or maybe financial aid is an important facet to their decision-making process. So if you know that WashU or school is the top or the right choice for you, you know this is where you want to attend, applying early decision can be a great option. If you want some more flexibility but want to apply earlier, EA, early action is a great fit. But if you want the ultimate amount of flexibility and time, then regular decision can also be a good fit for you. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see some other different options. Rolling admissions is also an option for some schools, especially at some larger flagship public universities. This really means that you can apply at any time, and you may hear back about a decision within 1 to 2 weeks of fully submitting your application. There's typically no deadline until they have to really build out the class and have an endpoint then. And then open admission, that just means that you can really apply at any time. This is really specific to a lot of our 2-year community colleges in the United States, also known as open enrollment. But really, the three that you want to focus on if you are applying to highly selective university are going to be early decision, early action, and regular decision. Like I mentioned in the previous slide about application types, I would also keep a tab in your spreadsheet as you're tracking this information about what different decision plans are available at that specific school, because that can help you map out maybe I want to apply to this school ED1, but also have my backup options and apply to them either early action or maybe regular decision. Now we'll dive into the different parts of the college application that a place like WashU or another highly selective institution is typically looking at when we're trying to make these really difficult decisions about who to admit to our class. And I do want to highlight that it's really important to note that there is this idea of holistic review. It's a really important piece of any highly selective admissions process. Holistic review essentially means that when we sit down and review an application, we have to consider every component of the application in order to make a fair and informed decision for each student. There are no minimum academic requirements in our process except for engineering and business and English proficiency scores, but there's no minimum GPA, no minimum test score, no minimum IB score or A-level mark in order to be considered eligible for admission to a place like WashU. Now, of course, we are looking for students who are doing very well in the classroom, but we're also interested in your context. We're interested in your personal journey, your academic history, because we know that every student is on a different trajectory, and we want to see what type of student you might be on our campus, but also what type of community member you might be. So we're not just interested in your academics, though they are highly important. We're also interested in your values, your personal characteristics, what drives you, what motivates you, what are your quirks, your interests. how you might contribute to our campus community. Those are also very important because we want to get this fuller picture of who you are, both as a student and really as an individual. So first we'll dive into the transcript. So the transcript or the academic record really gives us a unique insight into who you are as a student. Again, most universities do not have minimum requirements, but they are looking for students who are doing very well in the classroom because any institution like WashU or one of our peer institutions, it's a very academically rigorous place. It is very challenging. There is support available, but we want to make sure that you can get through that academic threshold first and foremost and be able to do well day one in the classroom. So we want to look at your trajectory over your 4 years in high school. Maybe you have standardized scores such as O levels, IGCSEs. We may all be also interested in your predictions, whether that's for A levels, international baccalaureate. If you're on the American style curriculum, we want to look at your 12th grade perhaps to see how well you're doing in the more recent performance. So your transcript really helps us to understand your predicted success for being a student on one of our campuses. We understand that students may have had, different circumstances that may have impacted their academic trajectory. We're not necessarily looking for students who have straight A's, though that is great, but we understand that life happens. Maybe your first year of high school was rocky. That transition from primary school to secondary school may have not been the easiest. We understand that, but we want to know that personal context. Use the common application to explain your circumstances. The counselor letter recommendation is also a great way for us to better understand who you are and what types of impacts you may have had or what has impacted you in the classroom, especially as it relates to your performance. The next being the activities list. We're interested to see how you're spending your time effectively outside the classroom. I get this question all the time. Well, what should I be doing outside the classroom? Does it matter if I don't have sports or if I'm not doing community service? And the answer is it doesn't matter. The real question is, do you like what you're doing? Are you excited about what you're doing outside the classroom? Are you really engaged in your community? So whether that means you are playing a varsity sport, or maybe you're leading a club on your campus, maybe you've joined an NGO outside of school, are those things important to you? And are you making an impact in your community through one of those different outlets? So ultimately, we just want to see how well you are spending your time effectively outside the classroom. And it doesn't necessarily need to relate to your major. You might be very keen on studying computer science, but maybe you are doing a bit of programming on the side, but maybe really your passion right now is doing creative writing. That's great. We want to see that as long as you are committed to that. So we just want to see that you are most passionate or interested in what you are doing, and that's going to do very well for you in our process. Um, Next on this list is demonstrated interest or interviews. Some of you may have heard of the idea of demonstrated interest. It is something that WashU does track in our process. Demonstrated interest means that any way that you engage with an office of admission, whether that means emailing your admissions officer, though not bombarding them, asking them a genuine question, engaging in a virtual webinar, if you're able to visit our campus, any way that you're able to engage with an office, all of that gets tracked in the admissions process. When admissions officers review applications, if they track demonstrated interest, they will actually be able to see ways that you've engaged with their office. That shows them that you are serious about that particular university and really kind of can help kind of increase your chances of admissions in some way. So it shows that you're serious in their university, and this is a place that you want to attend. It's not a guarantee of admission, but it can kind of help the admission officer or the committee understand that this is a student that is really serious in considering our university for attendance. Some universities may also require interviews in their process. This is not something that WashU requires, but it can be a part of a certain university, maybe an alumni interview or a student interview, and just trying to understand you and personalize your academic or your application process a little bit more. So just keep that in mind. Standardized test scores. This is going to vary by institution. Some universities and colleges are still test optional. Some have gone back to requiring test scores. For WashU, we are still test optional. Now, test scores such as the SAT or the ACT really help to understand your predicted success as a student at WashU or another highly selective university. Though they're not the only predictor of academic success, again, looking at your high school work, that's also very important. But they can help predict your first year success as a student at a place like WashU or somewhere else. Many institutions do not have any minimum test scores, but they do on more often than not do publish their average SAT and ACT scores. So while that's not a minimum, that can help you understand, okay, what is the most competitive score for this university, especially if a school is test optional. Maybe my test score might be below that threshold, and maybe I'm not going to submit that test score. Maybe is within that threshold, and maybe I will submit that because that might be some more information that I can provide to the admissions committee to help them understand that I am a very well-prepared student for their school. The next on this list are essays and personal statements. Now, more often than not, a lot of universities and colleges do not offer interviews for admissions, such as WashU. So your personal statement in the common application is really your best opportunity to let the school know what you're all about. Let your personality shine through. We're not looking for you to use SAT words, academic, English language. We're really looking for you to speak in a way or write in a way that you might speak with a peer, a friend, maybe a relative like a cousin or a sibling, someone who's gone through the admissions process, someone that you trust. Those for us are the best ones where we actually get to see the student's genuine, authentic voice come through in the essay. And there's not a writing topic that we are specifically looking for. There's not one prompt that we are looking for in the common application. We just want you to be able to write about something that only you can write about. You can write about Minecraft all day long. I know nothing about Minecraft, but I know if I read your essay and your passion really comes through, that's really going to stick in my brain and stick in the admissions committee, showing us that this is a student who's really passionate about something, and this is a value that we want to bring into a campus community like at WashU. I've also read countless essays about students' dogs and grandparents, and I've gotten to the very end of the essay, and I've learned absolutely nothing about the student, but I've learned everything there is to know about their dog, including their favorite treat. The dog is not applying to WashU, right? So we always want to get to the crux of who the student is. So if you are talking about someone who's had an outsized influence in your life, that's totally fine and great, but always bring it back to yourself because at the end of the day, we just want to get to know you and who you are as an individual and what this or what this experience has shaped you, and how that really translates into your ability to be an effective member of our community at WashU. I will also point out supplemental essays as well. It's not listed on this list, but I did mention earlier on some colleges like WashU will have supplemental essays. For WashU, we have a supplemental academic interest essay that is really just asking about what you're interested in studying and why. It's not actually specific to WashU, but rather we want you to use this information or use this space in the application to tell us a little bit more about yourself, not WashU. So tell us more about this interest in fashion design, in computer science and history. Was there a specific subject in school that really ignited your interest to study this subject? Was it a community service project, working with someone in the classroom or outside the classroom? So not necessarily looking to learn more about WashU, but rather about you. And the last point that we'll drive home are letters of recommendation. Now, letters are really important in any college or university admissions process because most of the writing that we see in the application does come from the student, but we're also interested in writing and hearing about individuals who have a relationship with you, a counselor, a teacher that knows you really well, getting a third-party perspective into who you are. We want to learn about how you've interacted with individuals inside your classroom. Maybe you've helped someone learn something new, or you've led a classroom discussion. You may not have an explicit leadership role like being a president, and that's totally fine. But maybe a teacher saw you show leadership in the classroom, right? That's really important, and we want to see that shine through in this piece of the application. We're not interested in hearing about how well you're doing and the grades that you're receiving, but who really are you as an individual, both inside and outside the classroom? So all in all these factors really help an admissions office make a very crucial decision about not only your potential success, but also your potential fit for a university. So that's really where holistic review comes into focus. So there's not one component in this list that's going to be the ultimate deciding deal breaker for an admissions office, but rather a culmination of all these factors. Now we'll dive into kind of the review process itself. It's really important to know that every admissions office is going to have a kind of a different system of review. There may be committee-based review, a full-on committee, individual review. These are great questions to ask individual colleges and universities just to understand, how they review applications in their own office. There's not necessarily a secret that we're keeping from you all. They're all reviewed by humans. Your applications are not being reviewed by computers or artificial intelligence, but these are really, really a human-centered, student-centered process. The great thing that we get to do at a place like WashU WashU and other highly selective universities is that we get to build a community from this review process. Even though we might not be able to admit every single student, every application that we do review, we do find value in those students, which I think is a really exciting thing to see. Every student that's applying is bringing something to the table. And for me personally, reading from students from around the world, I get to learn something new about the world or about the student that I didn't already know. So that's a really exciting part of our job. And then again, through the application process, we get to know who you are, where you're from, also your goals. What do you want to accomplish in college and beyond? And how does that translate into our community at WashU, but also in the future? So again, those different components that we looked at from the transcript to your letters of recommendation really help to highlight who you are as this well-rounded individual and how you can fit well into the mold of our campus community at a place like at WashU. So this is kind of where everything kind of comes together, how it all culminates to one another. So at a place like WashU, we're looking for students with a variety of backgrounds. There's not one specific student that we're looking for, but rather a student who's going to be very collaborative, a student who's going to do well and thrive on our campus community, a student who's not just interested in computer science, but wants to study across different disciplines, have this very well-rounded academic experience. So we're looking at two different things, right? We're looking at your academic fit. We're seeking to understand, are you well prepared for your program of study, whether that's in computer science and architecture and history? What are the results or the marks that you received on your exams? Did you take the SAT? How well did you do on that? But also understanding not just that, okay, you're good academically, you'll do very well day one, but also who you are as an individual. What are you interested in doing? What have you done outside the classroom in sports, in performing arts, theater, music, community service, whatever it might be? How does that translate into your academic? And how does that translate into who you are, as well as understanding who you are from an outsider perspective, from those letters of recommendation, also your essays, highlighting your personality, highlighting something more about your personal experience. So all that really comes together to help us understand your ultimate fit for a university like at WashU. So one of the last points we'll drive home before I think we open up for questions is the search process. So I kind of touched upon these before, but we've already talked about kind of the admissions piece, kind of what, typically highly selective universities are looking for. But now, like, what can you do now? I imagine many of you are kind of in the final stages of high school or secondary education in your country. So it's really important to start thinking about what you can do at this moment. Typically, applications for colleges don't open until early August, so you have a few weeks left before those applications are due. You do not need to submit your application August 1. Most colleges do not start reviewing them until after the first decision deadline, so in early November. So there's no need to rush it. Take your time. But one of the first things you can do is start doing your research and ask questions. Start to think again about what you are interested in doing in college. What do you want to accomplish? What types of academic programs are you interested in? Think about the major field of study that you want. Look for colleges that do very well in that area. Do you want to be at a research university like at WashU with also a liberal arts education? Being able to study across multiple disciplines without having to focus necessarily on just one. What type of classroom space do you want to be in? A classroom with more students or smaller students, maybe seminar style? Do you want to be in a bigger city? Do you want to be a certain part of the United States? Think about those and start to kind of dig into the minutia of what's really important to you. I know the College Board has a great resource. I think it's called Big Future, where you can also search in their database and search and filter out specific things like size of the school, academic programs, different things like that, and that can help you narrow down your choices. Ask questions. Reach out to admissions officers like myself, admissions offices around the United States. Just ask them questions. Ask any questions you might have about their academic programs, what they're looking for in their students, because every college is looking for something a little bit different. We can also help you engage with our current students to really understand what the current student perspective is and their experience is like on our campus right now. Think about fit. We kind of touched upon that already. So again, think about things that are really important to you. Every one of you is going to have a different outlook and different set of goals that are going to be unique to your own. Talk with your family. I think this is really important. This really comes down to financial for most individuals. Think about what your family can afford and pay for a college education, especially in the United States. It is very expensive. And it's really important to know that financial aid for international citizens is very limited across the board in the United States. So think about what your family can afford and look to see, are there more affordable options or Is there a university like WashU that does cover the full cost of need for students? So think about what might be the right fit for you outside of those other things like academics, personal community qualities that are really important to you in your college education. And that does lead into the next point, scholarships and financial aid. Again, a lot of universities and colleges, they are very fortunate to offer need-based financial aid to international citizens. WashU is one of them, but it typically is limited, and many institutions do employ the need-aware process, meaning for international citizens, they do have to consider students' ability to fund their education, but they can still afford to offer them a full need if they do apply for financial aid. Some schools and universities only provide merit scholarships, which are entirely just based on your merit. So looking at your application for admission, your academic achievement down to your personal, your leadership qualities in deciding to award you a certain merit scholarship. So think about costs, talk about your family or talk with your family about those different qualities or those different pieces, because at the end of the day, this is a big investment, not just for yourself, but as well as for your family. Take a lead in this process and just enjoy it. I know this can be a very challenging time, but this is also just very exciting to think about your future and think about what higher education can mean for you and what types of doors that will open for you. Get excited about the future careers and the outcomes that you can have, whether that's in the US or abroad, back home. Um, be kind of the director of this process for yourself. It's okay to have take advice from others. Your counselors are very great resources, family members, but at the end of the day, you know what's really important to you and kind of take a gut feeling whenever you're going through this process. Think about what's the most important to you. Go back to your research, go back to your initial notes, kind of remind yourself about what really matters to you in your college search and what you want to get out most in your college education in the United States. And I think that brings me to the end of this presentation. I want to thank you all again for joining us today, this evening. Just know this is not the end of our conversation, certainly just the beginning. My office is always on hand to further along this conversation. You're welcome to reach out to myself via phone or email, and we're happy to chat further about WashU as well as general admissions process. You're also welcome to engage with us on social media, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. But I think at this time, I'm happy to take any questions from the audience, whether that's from the Q&A feature, or if there's another outlet for students to ask questions. Okay, let's take a look. So Roshan is asking, do you offer bioengineering course? Yes. So in our McKelvey School of Engineering at WashU, we have about 16 different programs in engineering. Biomedical engineering is probably one of our more popular programs, partly due to our close proximity to the School of Medicine, where you may find some overlap between our medical campus and the School of Engineering in conducting research, clinical experience, and things like that. Engineering at WashU overall is about half theoretical learning, about half hands-on learning. So there is plenty of opportunity for research opportunities, working closely with your professors. We have over 100 research centers and libraries on our campus alone. So really something for all types of engineering students. The great twist with our program is that every engineering student receives a liberal arts education. So part of your curriculum and engineering is to not only take those core engineering requirements in calculus, lab sciences, but also take classes in the humanities, social sciences, other natural sciences, because we believe at WashU that the best engineers are those who are going to be effective communicators, problem solvers, collaborators, leaders, and all those skills and competencies come from that liberal arts education. So you'll have to communicate to a board of directors about the research that you're conducting, the project that you're working on. You'll have to be a good writer and writing out your research papers that may be published into a journal. So that's the type of education that we're providing to our engineers at WashU. Next question, also from Roshan, is how many honors can a student have? There is no limit. I would be very mindful about the honors that you are listing. We want you to be listing out the honors that are most important to you. There's no magic number for us. We have no expectation whatsoever. Honors are great, but we're also seeking more to understand the engagement behind that. Was this something that you just kind of, it was a one-off, maybe like a one-day thing, but maybe there's also been, 4 years of engagement under your belt in this specific activity, and this has led to this specific accomplishment. So ultimately, we just want to see context for that award, not that you're just listing something out for college admission purposes. Hassan has asked a great question. What impresses you most in writing college essays, and how can we improve our college essay writing to not write any weird stuff on it, and express ourselves clearly? That's a great question. I think writing about yourself can be really tricky and difficult sometimes. I would go through the common application prompts. I think there's 6 or 7 of them. Just go through them and jot down some ideas for each prompt, and then eventually you'll come down to find the prompt that probably best speaks to you. It could be any one of those, and there's not one prompt that we are looking for in particular. And then when you start to write the essay, I would start to say to write in a stream of consciousness. Don't worry about the word limit. Just write as you normally would, whatever comes to mind about the story that you want to share with the admissions committee. And then the harder part will actually be cutting down the words to get down to that 650 word limit. My other recommendation is that in order to have your personality and your authentic voice shine through, is to have a number of individuals that you trust really well who know you to read your essay over and over until they can hear your voice come through. It's important to not have too many folks read your essay because you don't want to have too many cooks in one kitchen. You want to make this as intentional for yourself. But as soon as they can hear your voice come through, I think that is a great starting point because for us as admissions officers, we don't interview students. The best way for us to understand students is through their essay. And for us, the ones that where we feel like we can hear the student's voice in our heads when we read the essay, those are the best ones that shine through in our process. And we're not necessarily looking for academic language. We're really looking for you to write in a way that you might speak with a peer, a friend, a sibling, an adult. We want you to use appropriate language, a professional tone, but also be very personal in your writing. Let's see. I just want to highlight, I've seen some questions about graduate programs. I only work with prospective undergraduate students. So if you have any questions about graduate programs such as master's degrees or PhD programs, I do recommend that you reach out to our academic departments at WashU. Um, See, Yusuf asked how to improve yourself so top universities select you as much as possible. That's also a very challenging question. There's really no magic answer to this. You just have to put your best application forward. Again, it comes down to the capacity that we tend to have. We unfortunately have to turn away a lot of highly qualified applicants. It doesn't mean that they weren't the right fit for WashU, but it does come down to that capacity question. So you just have to put your best application forth. If you know that your academics are strong, that's great. But what else do you have to show to us? You really have to shine through in those writing elements. Tell us about your activities that you're really involved in. Show us your engagement and your commitment to whatever you're doing. Also, we'll find highlights in your letters of recommendation to really see who you are from an outsider perspective. So it really is that holistic review. It's very intentional in our process because we really want to understand every student from the lens of themselves. Um, so there's really not necessarily a way to improve yourself because once you submit the application, it's really out of your hands. So as long as you're very confident in yourself, I think that's the best way of knowing that you've done the best job for yourself. And again, it's really important to know that everything that we see in an application from every student, no matter what the outcome is, be proud of yourself in that way, but also know that we find value in every application that we read, even if we may not be able to admit every one of those students. So I think as long as you're confident in yourself and what you put forward, I think that's the best that you can do, and just let the process play out. Also from Youssef, is the CAIE results important? I assume you're talking about A levels. So in our process, we do require predicted A levels or international baccalaureate, depending on the curriculum that you are pursuing. Largely in part because we don't receive your final results until after the admissions process is over. So we typically wrap up the admissions process. We admit students by late March, early April. And then those results don't come out until July or even August. So we do look at your predictions. So we do look at them very close in our process to understand how you are doing in your predicted success within a specific subject, especially as how it might relates to your academic program that you intend to study at WashU. Now, when we do receive your final results, let's say you're enrolling at WashU, our admission is not necessarily conditional in the same way that the UK might be conditional, that you have to get these certain marks in order to stay enrolled or be admitted to this university. But if we see a drastic drop in your final marks versus your predictions, then there may need to be a conversation had with that student about what next steps might mean in terms of enrolling at our university. But if it's just, kind of, one grade off, it's not a huge deal. You may lose out on potential credit at WashU, but there still may need to be a conversation had about your potential success as a student at WashU. Let's see, what else? Another question about this is WashU specific. If you could share information about signature scholar programs and whether or not internationals are eligible for that or not. So signature scholar programs are one of our buckets of merit scholarships at WashU. We have two buckets. The one bucket is academic division scholarships. These are awarded by each academic division. They range from a few $1,000s all the way up to covering full tuition. Just by submitting your application for admission, all students are automatically considered for one of those scholarships. There's no additional application, no checkbox on the application. Just submit your application on time and you'll be considered. And then our other bucket is in the signature scholar programs. There are three different scholarships that are available. Only two of them are available to international students. The Irvin Award is not available to international students, just in the way that it's been endowed and allocated is not available for international citizens. But the Danforth and the Rodriguez Scholarship are both available for international citizens. There is an additional essay that is required for each one of those essays because this scholarship, one of them is, or both of them are meant to be part of a broader community at WashU, where you get to build community with each other. Get to build on your leadership qualities and skills together, engage in community service outside of the campus as well. So it really is an all-encompassing cohort-based model. So there is an additional essay just trying to understand a little bit more about you in the mold of these individuals in which the scholarship has been named after. Let's see. Question about acceptance rates. How do they differ in early decision versus regular decision? So at WashU specifically, we do admit most of our class through the early decision rounds, one and two. About 60% are admitted. That's not the acceptance rate. Our acceptance rate for early decision, both rounds, is about 30% this last year, and it's about 8 to 10% for regular decision. So you will see a higher acceptance rate for early decision because we're admitting most of our class, and then a lower acceptance rate for regular decision. So if you know again that WashU is your top or your first choice, early decision is a great way to not only demonstrate your interest, but to also in some ways maximize your chances of admission. Again, not a guarantee of admission, but we are admitting most of our class through early decision round. If you know that maybe WashU, if you're not quite prepared to submit your application, you need some more time, regular decision is also a great way to apply, and we do still admit students through our regular rounds. Someone is asking about passion projects. Yeah, so passion projects are kind of an interesting topic in college admissions. So I think what we really don't want to see in your application, and we are very good at kind of sniffing this out, is that we don't want you to be doing something that you're just doing for the purposes of admission. Thinking that this project that you're working on, this community service project, or this research paper that you've written, is entirely meant just to give me plus points in the admissions process. We see this all the time. It does not come out as very genuine and authentic. We need to see sustained commitment and engagement, no matter what you are doing. If you are passionate about a certain topic, we want to see that shine through, but we need to see that you are fully engaged and may need some additional verification. We hope to see this verification from the counselor. Maybe you're able to elaborate it in your personal statement. You provided some documentation. That is great, but we want to see that you are fully engaged and fully interested in what you are doing. And it's not just something that you are doing just for the purposes of admission to WashU. Let's see. Muhammad is asking about financial aid. Does WashU offer financial aid to civil or environmental or construction management at WashU. Yeah, so for all international citizens, we do meet 100% of demonstrated need as long as you're admitted and you do apply for financial aid at the time of application. I know there's another question about financial aid, so I'll just kind of do an overview. Again, we meet 100% of demonstrated need for all admitted undergraduate students. International citizens are required to submit the CSS profile through the College Board. We do not provide fee waivers for the College Board or for the CSS profile, so if that poses a hardship for you, we do recommend that you submit our free international student financial aid application through your Pathway applicant portal. We are asking very similar information, and then our financial aid office is able to calculate all that information to understand your family's estimated family contribution, as well as what potential aid WashU can provide. We do not put any loans into our financial aid packages. We are a no loan school. So any money that WashU does provide to our students, it never has to be paid back to the university. Now, I will point out that financial aid for international citizens at WashU is very limited. So it is a very highly selective process, more so than admissions. We also employ a need aware process in our review. That means for any international citizen, we do have to consider your ability to fund your education at the time of application. That does come into our decision-making process, largely due, in fact, again, because our financial aid is very limited. So most of the students that are coming to WashU from abroad are going to be full pay students. With that said, again, we do offer those merit scholarships. Those are also very selective, but that is also another way to finance your education, though not a guarantee of it. Let's see. I think I have time for a few more questions. Does WashU support double degrees? Absolutely. That's very flexible and very doable at WashU. About 80% of our students have a double major, so two majors or degrees, or maybe a minor or two across one or two academic divisions. So very flexible at WashU. You could have, again, a major in environmental analysis within the College of Arts and Sciences, but maybe you're also interested in entrepreneurship. You could have a major easily in entrepreneurship within the Olin Business School and still graduate on time in 4 years. So it's not a matter of necessarily time constraints, but it's a matter of kind of being on top of your game and making sure your academic advisors are also on the same page as you because they also want to see you succeed and they are a good resource for you in making sure you're taking the right courses for both majors and being able to graduate on time. Amna asks, are there any specific requirements for a major? The only requirements that we have at WashU are going to be for business and engineering. For the business school, we are looking for students who have exposure to calculus in the curriculum that's offered to them. So if you're on the A-level track, we're looking for A-level maths or further maths or pure maths. If you're taking International Baccalaureate, we're looking for higher level math AA or AI or standard level math AA. For engineering, we are looking also for that calculus requirement. We're also looking for physics if offered at your school, whether that was taken as part of IGCSEs or IB or A levels. Any student that has those requirements met, that will position them best in our process. And as long as you are getting good, strong marks in those subjects. If you are interested in our programs in art and architecture, for art, we do require a portfolio that really showcases your strengths and abilities. So about 10 to 15 different pieces of your best work, whatever you want to present to the committee. And in architecture, it's not required, but is highly encouraged for submission. Again, I'm seeing a few questions about PhD programs and master's programs. I can't answer those questions. I only work with prospective undergraduate students, so I highly encourage you to reach out to our academic divisions for more information. I see one more question about IGCSE. Does IGCSE matter more or A levels more than IGCSE for calculating high school GPA in our college application? So again, every college and university is different. WashU does not recalculate GPAs. We take the raw score, the raw GPA that's available on your transcript, whatever that might be, but also school context is really important. Some schools have GPAs, some schools don't, and we look at your raw marks or your results from your IGCSEs. Because the way that our application works in the timeline, we won't have your final A level results unless we do. For most students, we won't at the time of review. So we take a look at your IGCSE results from year 10, and then we also look at your predicted A levels to see what your potential success is on those A-level marks. Many of our most competitive students who are doing IGCSEs are getting 7 through 9 marks or A's on their IGCSEs. And then we're also looking at your predictions for A levels. Typically, our minimum is 3 A-level subjects with A's or A stars. Again, no minimums, but that's kind of where our competitive students are. So we kind of look at a combination of both of those to see what you've done up until this point of applying to college, and then your predicted success on those final exams to see how well you might do in those subjects, and especially as it might relate to your intended field of study, if that's engineering or business or something else. Great question. Does WashU have an in-house evaluation or need third-party like Wes? We do not have a third-party evaluation. We evaluate all the applications or the transcripts and academic records ourselves. We are highly trained admissions officers. We have extensive experience reviewing applications from around the world. So we are very mindful about different educational systems. We also have great resources like Education USA to reach out to your school counselors as well, in case we have any additional information about the results or the marks that we are seeing. But there's no need to get a third party evaluation for your academic records at the undergraduate level. We do have an application fee for WashU. It is about $80. If you are applying for financial aid, we will waive that fee. You just have to indicate that you are applying for financial aid in the common application. I think there are no more questions, so I will leave it there. Thank you all again for joining us. This has been a great productive conversation about WashU and highly selective admissions. Please again reach out to our office if you have any more questions. I am the admissions officer for Pakistan and South Asia. So if you have any more questions after today, please feel free to reach out to myself, and we're happy to further along this conversation. With that said, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you again for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Matthew. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.